Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Bennick with the Numismatic Portal. I'm in the midst of doing a series of interviews with prominent numismatists, and thank you for being here today to watch this. I'm with Tom Caldwell today from Northeast Numismatics, and Tom and I are going to be discussing his store. We're going to be discussing his history. We're going to be discussing coins. We're going to be discussing all sorts of things from his career. Tom, I'm really glad you're able to join me today. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, let's get started with the basics. Tell me about your start in coins. How did you get your start in the hobby and when?
Okay, well, it's kind of a corny story, but I was in junior high, and my mother gave me milk money as she did every day for school. And a friend, Chris Brannigan, who I haven't seen in over 50 years, said, "Tom, you should check this coin out here." It was an 1867 Shield nickel. I don't remember if it was raised or with raise. And no, I don't still have that coin, but I checked it out at the time. It was worth about $20. And you could say the rest is history. I've been doing it ever since. I've always been into coins.
So, did that coin come from the change that your mom gave you for milk money?
Yes, it did.
Wow, that's fascinating. And you said you didn't have the coin anymore. Any idea what happened to it? Did you sell it as a special
Yeah, I probably sold it
You probably did. That's
at some
good.
point. I don't know.
You know, I've always wondered, and we can get into this in a bit, just how one decides what to sell and what to keep, whether as a dealer or as a collector. I'm more of a collector. You've been more of a dealer, I assume, over the years. But,
Yes.
I'm just curious, have you been more of a collector or more of a dealer or a mix of both?
I've pretty much always been a dealer. Basically it's hard to buy, hard to collect and because you got to pay the bills, until maybe I can put a few things away, which will be a special coin I can show you a little later in the interview that I did put away. But it's basically I've always been buying and selling.
Amazing. Okay. Well, have you always been based in New England?
Yes, I was from Littleton, Massachusetts, which is 10 miles west of here, and now I'm in Concord. I've been in Concord for the last 40 years or so. Um, never had a real shop. Always been an office. Starting in my parents' basement, I had a shop and a sign out front, and then I moved around a few times, but been here in Concord for like you say 40 plus years.
So the sign outside your parents' basement, this was not public facing. This was just probably just to the neighborhood or to your family, letting them know that you were set up there.
No, it was public facing. It said Tom's Coins.
Really, it really did. So people could
Yeah,
stop by.
right.
So why was it that you decided never to have an actual storefront?
Well, it's always we like to deal with the public, um, but to have that extra spot for people could just sit down and just stay in your shop. And not that I'm antisocial or anything, but it was always just seemed better to be dealing people on the phone and in the mail, and this better security wise, we find it better, which of course has come into more prominence as time has gone on. Um, but just never went that route. I've considered it over the years, but in the end, found a more ideal location to locate.
No, that makes sense. I was actually driving through Oregon last week and stopped in a small coin shop, and I walked in, and it was like this collection of people just lounging around talking about coins. It was quite obvious that these guys maybe were buying, maybe not, but they were just hanging out is what they were doing. And I could imagine that as a dealer, you'd want people going through the shop, buying and selling and whatnot, rather than just hanging out all day long.
It's a different business model. Just never totally went for, and I'm sure at this point I never will.
So Northeast Numismatics started from those humble beginnings in your parents' basement, or did the name and the store, as it were, develop the business develop in a different way?
Well, the name Northeast Numismatics started um, some years later. I went to a 2-year business college, and around that time.
Okay. And you've always worked under that banner, Northeast Numismatics.
That's correct. Yes.
So one thing that I'm interested in is, and I do want to get into something that you mentioned. I do want to get into security and whatnot and safety and whatnot, because you brought that up. But one thing I want to mention that's completely different. I grew up in Connecticut, And going to coin shows, Auburn, Massachusetts, Polish National Home, all these shows in the 80s and the early 90s, I was amazed to move out to Washington, where I live now, and find that there's no colonial coins, for example. Whereas if you go to a coin show in the Northeast, there's colonial coins everywhere. And I was really fascinated about the regional nature of coin collecting. And do you encounter, I'm assuming you do, lots of people who are involved with colonial coins, and how much of that market takes up your time? Because out here in Washington, you could go to a coin show and not see even one colonial coin, which amazes me.
Well, honestly, I find that a little surprising if you're saying that's still the case these days with everything. I mean, you can get fresh fruit here in New England from the West Coast, so coins have been transported around quite a bit. But I can understand that years ago, because of course New England was settled long before Oregon was. But also it makes some sense just that, I mean, way back in the day, I was in somebody's attic and they found a hoard of 1953 large cents, which turned out to, which I got to buy what I wanted. And so, I mean, that presumably wouldn't happen out in the Northwest. But I think today, I mean, like we're here in Concord, there's a Concord Lexington Commem. I think I'm just as lucky to find a Concord Lexington Commem at a California show as I am here at a Massachusetts show, because so many coins have been so distributed everywhere these days. But back in the day, that's understandable.
Yeah, and I think that what maybe has transpired, and I'm just guessing, is that there's people, you know, I know that I'm connected to colonial New England roots, having grown up in Connecticut, but people out here simply are not. So maybe the connection to collecting that has not become as popular here. I mean, I might have overstated that there'd be no colonial coins at a show. There just wouldn't be the preponderance of them that you see at a show, say in Boston or New Hampshire.
Yeah, that sounds right. And I think there's also more dealers from this part of the country that are likely to have some colonials. Yeah, so that sounds right. We've always dealt in everything from colonials to territorial gold and everything in between. Just enjoy the variety.
Well, the website, I mean, northeastcoin.com is awesome. Like, I love it. I love the interface. I love just going to the site and browsing, buying things. It's fantastic. So you mentioned a whole wide variety of coins. What are your favorite coins personally? What do you enjoy most?
Well, I could say the next deal I'm going to make some good money on, but to take something in particular, we have always enjoy mint eras. You know, that's been a favorite. Early coins, as you mentioned, that's can't go wrong with the early coins. Early Americana. So I would say those would be a couple of particular areas.
I will offer an endorsement that the mint era selection on your website is always top notch, and I just always see things there. Every once in a while, find something to buy, but there's always an amazing selection of mint eras on your site.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we'll try to keep up the good work.
Good. Now, one thing that you do on your site, which is really interesting, is that you allow people to make offers at times on certain coins. Can you tell me about that and how that came about? Because that's
sure. Well, it's our site is largely treating it somewhat like a coin show, and we want the inventory to keep moving. So after a certain number of weeks, there'll be something that they can click, or something underlined where someone looking at our site can see they're allowed to make an offer. And we'll come back at our best price, or it might be negotiated further. And we get a lot of compliments on folks that just like that fact. We're not going to be hard-headed about this is the price and that's it. But a lot of course, a lot of things disappear right away from our site. They don't stick around. We have customers that are looking at the site multiple times daily. Somehow I wish they probably should get a life, but it works for us.
I'm glad. I know that there are specific things that I'm looking for, that I have alert messages set with you, that every once in a while I'll get an alert and I'll go and look at the coin. And there was one Standing Liberty quarter that I think I bought within a minute of you sending the, the alert last
Right,
time.
right.
Yeah, so I enjoy
Yeah,
that very
yeah,
much.
that works also. People can, it's easy to say, I'm looking for a 1927 S quarter or a pan pack $half or whatever, and they'll get that email if they've done that, it helps. We've had our site since we've one of the oldest coins sites, and we keep improving it since about year 2000, 1999 or so. In fact, we just did a major upgrade. It's been almost 2 years in the making, which the public won't see much of, make much difference, but they can, like some other sites do, they can look back and see anything they've bought in the last 20 years. You can now go to our site to look at.
That's
Um,
cool. So tell me, just tell me, oh, go ahead.
we work on the site every day. Of course, not just adding new material, but we work to improve it all the time.
What is it about mint errors that you've been attracted to over the years? Because I'm a mint error collector, certainly. What is it about mint errors that you've liked? You mentioned that first.
Well, just the oddity of them. Everyone is different, essentially. Um, it's a specialized field, but we've just always enjoyed dealing in them, no matter, pretty much no matter what they are, the varieties and the mint errors.
Great. Now, I was going to ask, and this is almost like a general question in a way, but I would love your perspectives on it. The timeline of the hobby since you started collecting, and the sort of changes and highlights and fads and trends that come up. I would just love to know from your perspective, what are the things that jump out to you most, say, about coin shows and how they've changed? Or, we could talk about grading trends as well. You don't have to combine them into one answer, but I'm just curious about the changes you've seen over the years and how it's impacted your perspectives on the hobby. Say, if we were to talk about grading, for example, and how that's changed over the last some 40 some years. What are your perspectives on that? Or your thoughts about grading and where we're at and where we've been?
Yeah, well, I think PCGS and NGC coming along as the major grading services have been good for the business. It used to be somebody would call up and say, what does the coin look like? And I'd say, well, hold it up to the phone and we'll tell you a little bit closer. But now, I mean, with the standardized grading, everybody taking into the 1 to 70 scale, it's only helped our business. It's eliminated some shysters out there that back in the day could just call coins whatever they wanted to. And that's with that said, though, there has been some changes along the way where the standards have like loosened up a little bit. Not something the grading companies would really admit, but it's used to be like a deep dark secret, but now it's pretty well known. But there's been adjustments to that, and well, we're talking about grading, of course. I think that was the major thing over the years that really changed the business, introduction of the grading services. And you have to give David Hall an awful lot of credit for coming up with that originally. And just as important is the registry sets. That it wasn't so much that he came up with the idea of putting the coins in the holders. It was also that he came up with a registry set for this. You've got tens of thousands of people competing with each other out there. That's been a big plus.
Yeah, people love competition. They certainly do, and they love in any way, right? So
Right.
whoever would have thought that we could compete with coins? It's really interesting.
Right. Yeah. Um,
So what you're talking about gradeflation, as people say, and sort of the inflation over time. It's interesting. What do you think has caused that? I mean, it's easy to surmise maybe, but I'm not exactly sure. What do you think has caused that gradeflation? That if you and I were standing around in 1986 with a display of Morgan dollars, say, and $10 gold pieces in front of us, all uncirculated, that those would grade differently than, say, if we did the exact same exercise today, perhaps. What do you think has
right.
caused
Well,
that?
I think part of it has been that coins have gone up in price a lot. So when, let's say, coin was a $50 coin back in 40 years or so, ago, might be a $500 coin today. Um, it might be a tendency to they want to grade things a little bit different um, and to refine it. That's why there's plus signs that came along about probably 15 years or so ago, and other such designations that the grading services have had.
Yeah, it seems that the addition of a plus or star certainly has added to the numerical grading scale certainly. But of course, that gradeflation you mentioned earlier, that it seemed to be metered a bit. Meaning, have you noticed that people are aware of that and they've made changes? And I don't mean to single out any grading company in particular, but we all do it. I'm sure that grading standards have shifted for all of us. Have you noticed maybe a pulling back on the flexibility of grading recently at all?
I would say to some degree that's true, and it's just, I mean, it's long been said that grading, it's not an art. It's not an art. It's subject to people's interpretation of what it is. So it's just likely to change over time, and also with people dealers submitting coins for walkthrough service, might be some tendency for the graders to want to give it a little extra grade over time. But I think it has evened out. But if we jump way to the future, of course, there's the new CAC grading service. John Albanese, who's not been happy with coins that the way coins are graded. He's going to be, well, it's interesting to see how that will play out.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. Have they started as of now, March 2023? Have they started grading coins yet? I don't think
they have not. No, that will be. I mean, they keep on putting it off because they want to get it right. Supposedly, they said it would be before the end of last year, but now it's probably a few months out. I'm guessing, but we shall see how
Yeah,
that.
we definitely will. So I mentioned coin shows earlier. How have coin shows changed over the years? I just imagine that going to a show, say in the late 1960s, early 1970s, would be a different experience than today. I would love to talk a little bit or hear a little bit about how coin shows have changed.
Right. Well, they definitely have changed. I want to say they were more prominent, more important for the dealings uh, back in the past. Not so much anymore. But we find that, like, we go to a show now and we tell somebody that's walking by, do you have a lot of coins not on display, anything you're looking for? And they'll say, well, I've already seen your coins, because they've already seen them on our website. So, but the shows are still important today, just for folks, because to get out and see people, see the competition, and just to get a better view of just what's out there. But I'd say that the shows, there'll always be shows, but with online business being in many ways more prominent, the shows will not be as important.
What about auctions? I know that you've gone to auctions going back at this point 50 years. How have the auctions changed? And do you have any memorable auction moments that you love from back in the day?
Well, they've definitely changed. I mean, just if again, just the very recent past is through COVID, the auctions are now like we just came from the Baltimore show, and they were showing lots there, but there was no auction at the show. The auctions are after the show now. They found that to work just as well, because certainly the coin auctions didn't change during COVID. They were still just as many auctions, and auction companies found they don't necessarily have to sell the coins at the show. It's actually made for maybe a little more civilized coin show, that we're not have to rush to the auction room to bid and be up till 1:30 in the morning at a session. And so that's the way it's worked out over time. So in that regard, but I'd say that shows, like I say, shows will always be here, but just not as important as in the past.
Do you have any memories of going to auctions in the early 70s and whatnot, and seeing any frenzy about a coin, whether you participated or not? You know, I asked Jeff Garrett, for example, about bidding on the 1913 Liberty nickel. Do you have any memories of going to auctions and seeing or experience anything wild? Like I'm imagining people yelling at each other and fighting during the auction, or bidding on some famous coin, for example, and having the frenzy of the room get really excited. Do you have any recollections of any coin in particular that was an auction experience to remember?
Honestly, nothing in particular. I mean, I wasn't. I did attend a lot of auctions, but tended to have other people bid for me, or not necessarily always being in the room. Um, there is one coin in particular. A couple coins I can show you right now that uh,
Please.
we think you spoke about mint errors. Um, I've always thought that a 43 bronze penny is kind of one of the most important errors. It's a coin that like your neighbor who doesn't know anything about coins will have heard about it, because it'll make the news whenever anyone sells, and then they'll all think that they're it's when we get the calls all the time when a 43 penny is coming, that they've heard about it. So it's something that the public knows and collectors are interested in. I think it's one of the like I said, most undervalued and one of the most important of all mint errors. And I've always wanted to own one. We bought one some years ago and sold it to a good client. And then a few years, not too many years ago, we bought another one. It was the first one ever discovered by Doug Lutz here in Massachusetts, in Western Mass in Springfield. He saved it his whole life. Finally put it in auction. Here, I'll show it to you. I don't know if you can see. And so it was the first one ever discovered. And then a few years later, the S-Mint came up for sale, and we bought that one also. Also the first S-Mint ever discovered.
Amazing. This is fantastic.
Did miss out on the D-Mint, only one known, but in some ways I saved myself $1 million. It was sold for, I was a mid underbidder at around 850,000 or so. So, but that's one of my favorite coins,
Oh, I'm
and
so glad.
its day will come, even though they're all worth a few $100,000 or so. I think it'll be continue prominence.
Yeah, and so you think that this is a coin with a lot of upside value, even though it's already an expensive coin by most people's standards. Do you think there's a
Yeah,
lot of upside value to it?
I think so. They're all the ones are known, although 3 to 5 years ago there were a few that came out, which didn't hurt the market at all. So I think so. Yes.
That's exciting. That's really exciting, actually. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you sharing that. That's fantastic. I was going to ask you about the $1 billion wreck and what it was like being their designated expert and what happened with their search.
Right. Well, they found me because they had a barge going out of Boston, and looked around and designated me as their expert. For last I heard and what I've read, that they never found the coins in it. It was off the coast of Nantucket that it sunk. It was a sister ship to the Titanic, but you never hear about it because there was only like 5 or 6 people that died. And they knew that there were 2 things going on there, that it had the ship's cargo. It was called the Millionaire's ship, and it struck another ship, and there was several hours for everybody to get off board as it slowly sank. And there was a cargo. They read that there was a cargo of the payroll for a South American country. And there was one other there also, I believe it was also, they thought there were some coins that were being shipped from one of the mints. I'm not sure exactly where now, I can't remember. But and they targeted a certain part of the ship to go to. And I don't believe they ever found it. It was in a really tough spot because of where the ocean's currents were difficult to get to. And they had a couple of rounds of raising money for it. And I don't believe they found the coins. They
So,
didn't at that spot.
so, and your role was essentially to be not a liaison, but an advisor of sorts on if they did find the coins, what they were worth, or what they might
Right.
expect to
They're
find.
asking me in right. They're asking me in advance if this is what it is, and the quantities are what we expect they will be. It would be worth billions of dollars.
Wow, but
So it was filmed in my living room at home back then, and that was a deal.
but as of yet, they've not found these $1 billion.
No, they have not. No, no.
Okay.
So
Well, we'll hold out hope for that. I was going to ask you, what advice would you give to somebody interested in becoming a coin dealer? What advice would you give to somebody who is just thinking of getting started in it, or maybe just starting on any level? What advice would you give?
I would say a couple things. I would say go to shows, see things, see coins, see how things are graded. But most importantly, find a mentor. Find somebody that you can talk to that will guide you. I mean, most dealers would be open to that. We've mentored a few kids throughout the years, and I think those two things really. And of course nowadays you can look online at coins to get a sense of how things look and all that. But I would say go to the if they're really serious, go to the grading seminar in A&A. Try to get have them pay for it, which they do, or have just go. And also there's Seth Chandler, who's at the Coin University out in San Francisco, who's made some inroads in that department. So
For sure, he's been great with young numismatists.
he has, yeah, he's paid all the tuition and everything, and had if they're younger, had paid for the parents to go there. He's had good intentions, and that's working out. So and along those lines, we have seen. If you had asked me a couple of years ago about new people in the business, I would say it's not really seen. I would never come out and say that the coin business is going down the tubes because there aren't young people. But there's been a lot in the last couple of years that have come out. We've seen at the shows, and basically, if a young person has the interest, if they're smart, they know what they're looking at. You can have a coin business online, and so we think the future is promising for the coin business with many young people getting involved.
That's great. What about young collectors? Just in case there's young collectors watching this, what advice would you have for people getting started in coin collecting? Not even necessarily young collectors. What if there was a 60-year-old or a 30-year-old didn't necessarily getting involved in coins for the first time? What advice would you have for coin collectors?
Well, I think it would be similar advice to go to a show, learn about the history of coins, and just continue from there. Find an area that you really enjoy. You want to collect a set of Morgan dollars or typeset of U.S. coins, or paper money interests you, or mint errors, or whatever. Just find something that really strikes you and study it. You can't necessarily learn it all unless you're really in it, full time and so forth. But find something that's an area that you really strikes you.
I think it's important to have that connection and whatever it might be that draws you to coins. I know that for me, I ended up collecting things that my father had collected, and whatever it might be for folks, I think it's important to have that personal draw to the coins. So you're not just doing it by rote per se, but rather have an actual emotional or personal or historical collection to what you're collecting.
Right. Too many people. It's easy to have a learning curve, which is understandable. I shouldn't say too many people, but understandable to have a learning curve. They might come in to see us at some point after they've been collecting for X number of years, and they've got a couple of Buffalo nickels and a few Liberty standing quarters, and maybe they thought they were being smart and they could outsmart everyone else online, and they bought a third world grading service coin, and they finally have a focus. So it's good to have a focus on just what you want to do, not just necessarily be random about what you buy.
It makes sense. It makes sense. So a couple more questions for you. What are your favorite coins that you've handled over the years as you look back on all the coins that have come through? And I mean, going to your website is a smorgasbord of coins. I mean, there's sometimes I click on series that I have no interest in whatsoever just to see all the cool coins that are on your website. And what are your favorite coins that you've handled over the years? I mean, you used the example of the 1943 bronze cent, of course. Are there others that stand out for you, coins that have come through your possession that you've bought and sold that really stand out as favorites?
Well, I remember being at I think a Bowers and Renner sale and buying I believe this is right at the start of grading or a little bit before, buying a gem-proof Stella. And the dealer next to me says, "Is that the first one of those you own?" I said, "Yes." So then I bought the next one, next lot. It was the second one I owned. That comes to mind. Recently, we've had a couple of pan pack $50 gold pieces, a round and octagonal. Those are that I can think of that is really always fun to own. And those are the type of coins that it's been said that people, once they've been collecting for a while, maybe in the long run they should just get, let's say 10 or let's say 20 different really cool coins they should own. And we did a trade recently with a customer that we met in the lobby at Long Beach, and he traded about 25 coins plus a check payment for our pan pack $50 gold piece that he had, and that was going to be one of his really outstanding pieces that he's going to hold on to for long term. So those are a couple that come to mind.
That's nice. I like that kind of collecting with the box of 20 idea, where you've got a box of 20 coins, and
Yeah.
that's great. And then, are there any coins that you wish you handled over the years? Any that either came close and got away, or just ones that you just never had an opportunity to own?
Well, yeah, I'd say one that comes to mind is the 1913 nickel. I remember back in the 80s, it was me and Larry Whitlow and a couple other dealers. We were trying to form a consortium to buy it if it sold for X amount of dollars. I think it was only about $300,000 or $400,000 at the time. And of course, we didn't come close. But that's one that I've always liked. Also, I think undervalued rarity is a 76 cc 20-cent piece. It's about a $1 million plus coin right now. Always like that. There's very few known. Those are two that come to mind.
That's great. Well, I like hearing this. Well, I appreciate all the things that we've talked about so far. We've covered a bit about history. We've covered a bit about the present and how things have changed over time. Is there anything else that I've missed in the course of thinking about what to ask you today? I just want to give you the opportunity to say, you know what, Greg, you missed this one important story that I wanted to share.
Well, you probably have, but not that I could think of right offhand. Nothing that comes to mind right now.
Okay, no problem. Well, we can always do a part 2 at some point if you like. I certainly am going to be doing some follow-up interviews with some of the folks I've interviewed in the past. Is there a general coin show schedule that you follow? If people want to meet you in person, if they want to talk to you, see the coins that maybe they haven't seen online already, or even if they have, see them again, is there a general list of coin shows that you always go to?
Well, we've been for close to about 50 years now. We've been to every Long Beach show. That's 3 times a year. Although, frankly, it's creeping into our mind to maybe skip one because it's not the prominent show that everybody has to go to like it used to be. There's a couple of regional shows here in Manchester, New Hampshire that Ernie runs. There's the Baltimore show 3 times a year. Central States in the spring. Yeah, which is our next major show at this point. Those are the major ones that we go to, and there's hit a couple of club shows like the one in St. Louis in February, which is a fun show to go to. Probably a couple of those I'm not thinking of, but those are the ones that are kind of ones we always go attend.
Yeah, great. Well, that's a good list. You know, I've always thought about dealers like yourself who go to so many shows. There must be, there has to be a cap or a limit at some point between, or rather, not a cap or a limit, but there has to be a figuring out of expenses because it's expensive to fly to shows and whatnot and insure coins and that sort of thing. There has to be at some point a figuring out, of course, of what shows are the ones that do the best, and so that you can actually make up and exceed your expenses with profit. I can
Yeah,
only
and
imagine that's a tricky thing.
right, right, and that comes into play all the time. The expenses have gotten more expensive all the time, more expensive to travel. Um, and sometimes we're better off just spending our time in the office. We get a lot of, we're always busy here in the office, and um, making efforts to buy back coins from collectors. And so it's something we're thinking of all the time. Yes.
Okay, well, Tom, thanks so much for spending some time today. You and I can stay online for a few moments after we stop recording here, but I just wanted to say to everybody, if you're interested in Tom and the coins that he has for sale, go to northeastcoin.com and check out the entire inventory there. And then in addition, if you'd like to see others of the interviews, be sure to check those out as well and let people know that this is an ongoing series of interviews with numismatists from around the world in all different states of with all different states of history, meaning some people who've been involved in the hobby for 50 years, some people who've been involved for less, but all of whom have different areas of expertise that I'm going to be wanting to explore with them. So thanks so much for watching. And Tom, thanks for spending a few minutes today. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.